Well, I'd love to talk a little bit about a more recent book you wrote called Trust. And I don't know what the subtitle is. Do you know what the subtitle is?
Title's Trust, and the subtitle is um, When to Give It,
Yeah.
When to Withhold It, How to Earn It,
Hmm.
and How to Fix It when it gets broken.
So
It's kind of the
that's
intersection.
pretty good. Yeah. So talk about what made you want to write that. Why you've written a whole bunch of things that are really helpful for people. What made you go, I think this is a book that I really want to write.
Um, so my first job as a psychologist, I got hired by a leadership consulting firm.
Hmm.
And so from day one, I was working in the field of leadership as well as clinical, and had those two parallel tracks for decades now.
Hmm.
And um, whenever I get called into a situation, you don't get very far into it, whether it's leadership or personal, that you start looking under the hood and there's some sort of trust breakdown
Hmm.
in a variety of levels, whatever it's affecting. And so trust is, it's been an important construct for me working for a long time. And then when I started doing more formal leadership consulting and training, a lot of times working with teams, leaders, organizations, brands. How's the brand build trust? How's the local church build trust?
Yeah.
All of that. I found it helpful because I'm kind of a model builder, right? If they had a little model, sort of like a GPS, that a leader or a marriage or a team or a brand could take, if we could check off these boxes, then we're building trust. If we can check off these boxes about hiring this person, then we're making a good decision. So how does trust work? So I started doing that a number of years ago and have used the model for a long time. I don't write about ideas
Right.
or theories. I'm a practitioner and I use things and work with things, and when I know how they work and that they work, then I'll write about them. So I've been using this model for a long time. And the way I write, there's a long, the pipeline. So it came due.
Yeah. That's
Time
right.
to finally write it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been running this, so now let's write it. So, I mean, I really love the book. That's why I'm bringing it up, first of all. And
Thank you.
I just I don't know that many people, specifically who come into ministry, have done a lot of thinking about how they're building trust or how they lose trust. Or a lot of pastors often, I mean, definitely coming through COVID, they experience different kinds of betrayals, disorientation. All these people I thought were going to be our church, I thought we were doing this thing together. We have this horrible pandemic. So many of the people are gone.
Yeah.
And the amount of relational flux that happens often for leaders specifically can start to embitter. Pastors and leaders start to become a little more defensive and protective. What are some of the things you've noticed? Because the first time I got to hear you speak, just personally, you were talking about some of the effects of COVID, how pastors were being affected, how people were being affected. Talk a little bit about what's most helpful for pastors and leaders and folks that really want to have influence in a life with Jesus. What are some of the tools?
Well, I think, and as we were talking about this conversation before cameras started rolling, you said, I said, so what are we going to talk about? And you said, some of the things that what is it that, what do I see unique
to pastors? Yeah, right.
Unique to pastors?
Yeah.
And I said, one of the things that's unique to pastors is they think they're unique.
Right.
And seriously, I'm going to start there because they think, well, it's different in the ministry, right? And you can develop this little bit of a mindset that's not going to help you,
Mm.
which is that it's kind of I'm a special kind of victim here.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I were in business, it
Right.
would be different. Well, yes, there are some unique things about the ministry.
Right.
All right. I'm going to give you that, but we're going to set it aside in the parking lot for a second.
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
most of what we're talking about, I have the same conversations with CEOs of public companies.
Mm.
When you're talking about trust dynamics and how it works, as Paul said, these are things that are common to mankind.
Mm-hmm.
That we all, these are human issues.
We all get hurt. We all.
Yeah. Now, I will agree with you, and all empathy out to the pastors. You have a tough job. I'm dead serious.
Mm-hmm.
You have some unique things in your context that make the way all this stuff works even more painful,
Mm-hmm.
I think. One of them is that, in the business world, relationships are, and the better the people are, the more important they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the currency, the essence, the fabric is not relationship.
Right.
It's the products and services and P&L and all of that.
What you can do. Right.
And relationships will certainly be, and I'm not negating relationship, but if somebody's really loved, what matters more to the shareholders is that, we're glad they're loved, but we want a return. Right? So there's a different,
right.
But you get in the church and this whole thing is about a body.
Mm-hmm.
And a body is supposed to have unity.
Mm-hmm.
And as Ephesians 4 says, each part is healed and grows as each part does its work.
Mm.
Interconnected with the sinews and joints and ligaments and all of that. And in the church, when you have betrayal and letdowns in trust, it's almost like, in a way, there's not a widget to fall back on.
Right.
In a certain way. That your relationships, that is the body. Your team is part of your body as well. You got your staff friends, you got your friends, and you got your people in the church outside. But, this cuts deep.
Yeah.
And another unique place that it happens with pastors, I think, is many times and we could dive deep into the specifics of the model, which you probably don't want to do, but there are people that you trust with your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start a ministry and you trust their integrity and their love for God and their support of you, and they love your vision.
Mm-hmm.
And you trust them. So they're the ones you come ask to join you.
Mm-hmm.
And they become your elders, or they become your supporters or your donors.
Mm-hmm.
And you really, really trust them, and they join you, okay? And that's great. But you develop that trust in a context.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now let's say they're an elder. You would trust them with your life. You would trust them with your kids. You would trust them until you've got to trust them to bring something to the party that an elder needs to bring to the party.
Yeah, right.
But they were chosen because these other ways you trust them.
That's right. Yeah.
And so in this context, you get let down because the ability to bring to being an elder, it was great when you were in a little room in your living room with 12 people.
Yeah.
But now you're looking 5 years later, whenever at a big complicated building program and legal issues, or you get sued or whatever it is. And that chair needs those competencies.
Yeah.
and you feel let down, and then and all this stuff. So trust has a lot of dimensions to it.
Mm.
And what I tried to do in the book was to help show how context, we trust people in some contexts and not in others. When you promote somebody, for example, they might have been great in one context, but do they have even the character makeup to pull it out? What if they are the type that need a lot of attaboys or attagirls and all that, and you want to send them to do a turnaround project? There's not going to be any good news for a year.
Right.
And they got to feel good about themselves every day. They're that guy.
Yeah.
Well, you might can trust them over here, but not with that because of their makeup.
Yeah.
And so trust has a lot of dimensions to it. And what I tried to do in the book was I went through all the literature, scientific literature, neuroscience and psychology and anatomy and brain science and all the stuff that drives our systems of trust, as well as all the leadership stuff, as well as the scriptures, and kind of did a factor analysis of all that. And it all fell in 5 buckets. And so that's the model.